Okay, so the next fundamental I want to talk about slow ins and slow outs. What are slow ins and slow outs? Well, when you look at something moving, when you look at me moving, when you're creating a character that's acting on a screen, when you move from pose to pose, when my hand goes from here to here, it doesn't just start and all of a sudden just start moving and then go to the other position. What happens is, whether it's a character walking, or I'll use my hand as an example again, as you say that this is a pose, and if I start moving, well, my hand is going to slow out of that pose, meaning it's going to start slow, it's going to speed up. And when I hit that stop, the stop on the second part of the position, the hand is going to kind of slow in. Even if it stops abruptly, there's a little bit of a slow in. It doesn't just stop, dead. Let me use this once again. We'll go back to our ballerina as an example. Remember, we were talking about her with follow through and overlapping action and the arcs and all kinds of stuff. Well, we've also got slow ins and slow outs. In the beginning of the animation, you'll see she's just standing there, and she's going to slow out of that position. So it's a slow out. She slowly starts to move and then speeds up. And then at the end, after she does her leap, she slows in to her final position. She's going to slow into that final pose. Okay, so if I play the animation, you can see that initial movement is kind of slow, and then she slows into the last movement. Some of you from the film and camera worlds, you might know these terms that I'm talking about, the slow in and slow out, as easing in and easing out, and you might be thinking about it a little bit opposite. When I talk about slowing in, I'm slowing into a pose, and I'm slowing out of a pose, whereas you guys might be thinking about slowing into a movement, like gradually putting on the gas and slowing out of a move, so you're putting on the brakes. They're all basically the same thing. They are the same thing. But for me, my old age, we learned slow in, slow outs, and you're slowing into a pose, slowing out of a pose. Either way, it's the idea that you don't start harshly and you don't stop harshly. You ease out and you ease in. What it does is it gives the animation, it softens it. It doesn't make it so harsh. If she were to all of a sudden start moving, first of all, the physics wouldn't feel right, but it'll give it a very jarring, kind of harsh kind of feel. So the slow ins and slow outs are something that, the 9 old men invented way back when, to give your animation just a nice soft edge to make it, once again, going back to that term that I'm always using, fluidity. Okay? Here's a slow in and slow out example I'd like to show you with my character Cyrano the elephant. This is just a simple head turn, but with a slow in and slow out added to it, it gives it a much more naturalistic feel, and like I said earlier, it makes it feel more fluid. So I'm just going to play this tiny little section. You can see it highlighted at the bottom there. If I play it, you'll see he'll turn his head and turn back. And now what's nice about this, I'm just playing this little section in a loop. You can see that there's a nice softness to the start of the head turn and the end of the head turn. And also notice a very subtle thing I did that actually becomes part of the drag and overlap section that I was talking about earlier. Look at the ear. There's a very subtle drag to the ear, but all of these little subtle actions added to your animation are what really push it over the top. It's that last little 5% that makes it feel like it's 150% better. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop this really quick just so you can see how the drawings, I want to kind of go through this. Now watch. I'm going to go through, see how the drawings are kind of slow, tightly spaced here, but then they turns quickly and he slows into that. See how they get nice and tight right in here. Look at the eye, especially during that blink. Speeds up, slows down, then they're drawn right over each other, and then he follows the bird and comes back in. It's a very simple little thing, but slow ins and slow outs, I use them more than anything else in my animation. More than anything. Every movement that I do with a character has a slow in and a slow out. It's very rare that you do something that's very harsh. And if you do, it's for an effect. It's getting punched in the face, it's being shot out of a cannon, whatever it might be. But adding the slow ins and slow outs add the fluidity and add the life that I was talking about earlier. So slow in, slow out. You're going to slow out of a pose. You start to move out. Oh no, actually, I want to hit one more thing too. The amount of slow out and the amount of slow in is something that you can play with, and you can vary that. So if we only have a little bit of a slow out, that's a really fast acceleration, right? And then let's say, if I'm clapping hands, there might be a little bit of a compression, a little bit of a slow into this position here, or the ballerina, like I showed earlier, when she comes to an end of her, at the end of her leap and she stops. It's a nice gradual settling. It's slow into that final pose. Okay, slow ins, slow outs makes your animation more fluid, gives it a little softer edge. Let's move on to the next fundamental.